California is home to Silicon Valley and Hollywood, Napa Valley and the Central Valley, and just generally world-famous beaches and mountains all around. You would be hard-pressed to find another sub-national state in the world as powerful and culturally prominent as California. Despite this, California is still just a state within the larger United States. But what if it was a country instead? Hello, and welcome to What If Geography, where we try and answer the great geographic what-if questions of the world. I'm your host, Jeff Gibson, and today we're talking about California as its own country. As the most populous state, California has the economic means, agricultural regions, and diverse population to make for a pretty convincing country. But while the Golden State has a lot going for it, it also has quite a few acute issues that would cause quite a bit of problems. But before we get into that, let's dive into just a little bit of history. California has existed as a state only since 1850, but prior to that, the general region that California exists in today has had a long and kind of tumultuous history. You see, the history of California can really be broken out into 5 distinct periods. 1, the Native American period lasting from about 10,000 years ago until the year 1542. 2, the European exploration period from about 1542 to 1769. 3, the Spanish colonial and religious indoctrination period from 1769 to 1821. 4, the Mexican state period from 1821 to 1848. And 5, the current period where California is a state within the larger United States. Each of these historical periods have contributed a significant amount of cultural heritage to the California we know today, and unfortunately, in this video, we do not have time to explore each in great detail. But just keep in mind that each of these periods has had a long-lasting effect on how California has developed over the decades. And of course, it's important to recognize that the state we know today is the historic land of over 30 native Californian tribes. And as with all indigenous tribes in the United States, these people were systematically and forcefully removed from their homes and placed into much smaller reservations. This period of time is commonly referred to as the California Genocide, in which the native Californian population was reduced from about 150,000 in 1848 to fewer than 16,000 in 1900. Now, prior to California becoming a state, it was a territory of Spain and then Mexico respectively. This history is partly why California, to this day, continues to be heavily influenced by Mexican culture and the Spanish language in a way that few other states share. Throughout its history as a state, California underwent multiple periods of explosive population growth. This includes the California Gold Rush from 1848 to 1855, where people swarmed into the state in order to mine for gold. Then there was the late 1800s period where California's population officially surpassed 1 million people. The post-Great Depression period where American citizens flocked to California and the West at large for better opportunities. And the post-World War II period where housing construction and GI loans lured millions of former soldiers and their families to the Golden State. Between 1870 and 1950, California went from being the 24th most populous state to the 2nd most populous state. That's incredible growth. The modern history of California can be described as a series of booms with very few busts. Time after time, California was able to seamlessly move from one economic generator to the next, which fostered a pattern of growth that really no other states within the United States has seen. Today, California is the largest and most culturally prominent state within the United States, and this makes it pretty easy to think of it as its own country. But before we get into what California would look like as a country today, if you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time to subscribe. More fun what if country videos are just one click away. Today, California is situated in the southwest corner of the contiguous United States and is bordered by Oregon to the north, Nevada and Arizona to the east, and Mexico to the south. But while its longest border is shared with the state of Nevada, its most important is with Mexico. This is because of the San Diego-Tijuana border crossing. Today, the border crossing is the busiest in the Western Hemisphere with approximately 120,000 vehicle crossings, 63,000 pedestrian crossings, and 6,000 truck crossings every single day. In some ways, despite being part of 2 completely separate countries, the San Diego-Tijuana metro area is more connected to each other than to other cities of their own respective countries. Of course, as its own country, every border crossing would become much more important. So while today, the land borders shared with Arizona and Oregon are relatively benign, additional infrastructure would be needed. And the 2 primary border entry points with Nevada would become much more complicated. Particularly in Lake Tahoe, where the resort town is literally divided in half by the border of California and Nevada. And the border entry point along I-15 connecting Los Angeles to Las Vegas would also become much more complicated, as Las Vegas would remain a huge destination for Californians driving to the city for vacation. In terms of size, California would not necessarily be a small country, but it also wouldn't be amongst the largest. California today is currently just about 164,000 square miles, and is the third largest state in the United States, just behind Alaska and Texas. But if California was its own country, it would be the 58th largest country in the world, just ahead of Paraguay and just below Iraq. Despite its relatively small size, California would still have plenty of space for people who actually live there today and future generations of immigrants. Today, California is home to just over 39 million people. As a state within the United States, it currently ranks number 1, and not by a small margin either. The next largest state within the country is Texas with about 29.5 million people. As a country, California would rank as the 36th most populous country in the world, which is, oddly, right above Canada in terms of world population rankings. This
is a picture taken in Canada, and this is a picture taken in Mexico. The geographic differences between the two countries, which sit 1,144 miles or 1,841 kilometers apart, are obvious at first sight. These two pictures show a striking similarity to the last two, but not only were they taken in the same country as one another, but in the same state, California. The Golden State is an economic powerhouse, a center of population, a place whose culture is familiar to people all over the world. But the similarities this US state has to entire countries don't end there. They are perhaps best exemplified by the vast variety of regions within it. California's regional differences are so great that in 2017, a venture capitalist named Tim Draper launched a movement, which ultimately failed, to give the state's residents more influence by dividing it into 3 different states, with the incredibly uncreative names of Northern California, Southern California, and California. Today, I will attempt to explain what I see as California's major regions, and delve into the geography, history, and culture that makes them unique. Hello and welcome to That Is Interesting. I'm your host Carter. Today, California's vast regional differences, explained. I will begin with a brief disclaimer. There are varying opinions on what the regions of California are, and various groups have their own listings and maps of them. The regions I'm going to discuss are based on my own experience and opinion, and are approached from a solely geographic standpoint, as opposed to me clumping various counties together and breaking them up on county lines, and as such, the population figures I provide are all rough estimates. Some of you will probably disagree with me on the specifics of what falls in what region, and if that's the case, my apologies. On my map, I've identified 9 different regions: the Northern Coast, the Cascades, the Sierra Nevada, the Central Valley, the Bay Area, the Central Coast, the Desert, the Channel Islands, and the Southern Coast. Let's get started. The first region I've set aside is the Northern Coast. It stretches from the northern tip of the various valleys whose rivers flow into San Francisco Bay to the Oregon border, and from the Pacific Ocean in the west to the Central Valley in the east. Home to an approximate population of just 327,000 people, this region is wild and mostly uninhabited. Most of its land is taken up by mountains, consisting of the Coast Ranges and the Klamath Mountains. The southern part of the region is the most populated, home to little scattered valleys that make the existence of small towns possible. Some of Northern California's largest population centers, like Ukiah and Willits, sit in these inland valleys. It is home to Clear Lake, the largest freshwater lake, which is completely inside California. The area around the lake is one of the region's major centers of population, with thousands of people living on its shores. Further to the north, the inland valleys are replaced by the tall, cold, and rainy Klamath Mountains, and most of the land is set aside as parks and national forest. The lack of flat land and the wild nature of the region makes the northern coast difficult to inhabit, giving it its small population. While California is known for being dry, the northern coast feels more like a part of Oregon or Washington State than part of California, home to dense forests, enormous redwoods, snow-capped peaks, and wide, raging rivers. While I've mostly talked about the inland part of the region so far, it revolves around the coast, where most of its population resides. The highway accessing the region stays mostly near the coast, and it provides a reliably flat area between the mountains and the sea where towns can be constructed, like Mendocino, Fort Bragg, and Crescent City, which sits just 17 miles or 27 kilometers from Oregon, making it one of California's northernmost towns. However, by far the region's largest center of population is the area around Humboldt Bay. Humboldt Bay is one of the West Coast's largest ports, and the mouth of the nearby Eel River provides the area with a relatively large expanse of flat land, suitable for agriculture and settlement. These ideal conditions give the area around Humboldt Bay a population of 80,000 people, or 25% of the northern coast's entire population, most of whom live in the town of Eureka. Geographically, the northern coast is incredibly unique, with a climate far different than other parts of the state. It is also isolated and cut off, with potential tourist attractions like Redwood National Park sitting nearly 6 hours from San Francisco. Most people move to California to be where things happen, and the remote northern coast doesn't attract people seeking in LA or San Francisco, giving it a wild and isolated feeling, unique from much of the state. Up next are the Cascades, if anything more remote and sparsely populated than the northern coast, with just around 130,000 people living in the entire region, a population that wouldn't even be considered a city in much of the state. The region is dominated by the Cascades, a range of incredibly tall mountains that stretch from California into Canada, including a variety of enormous volcanoes such as Mount Lawson, Mount Shasta, Mount Adams, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Rainier. While the region extends across different states and even countries, I'm going to focus solely on the portion within California. Unsurprisingly, these enormous mountains are not easy to inhabit, leading to the small population I described earlier. While the North Coast has an ocean that can lead to some suitable places to live, the Cascades have no such coastline. Within the region are two very different types of geography. The town of Redding, in my opinion, marks the northern tip of the Central Valley, but farther north, the Sacramento River, one of the state's main arteries, continues cutting through the mountains from its headwaters at Mount Shasta. This part of the Cascades is the region's population center, home to towns like Wairika and Dunsmuir, and fed by the river. Large reservoirs like Shasta Lake and Trinity Lake are popular recreation areas, and Mount Shasta draws tourists for skiing. The I-5, the West Coast's main highway, passes through it, making this section of the region along the Sacramento River far from empty. But to the east of the mountains lies an area with far less visitors. This is a sparsely populated land of deserts, forests, and grasslands, home to immense lava beds and glacial lakes that are enormous in the winter but dried up in the summer. This section of the Cascades is a part of the Great Basin, the largest desert in America, which encompasses large swaths of Nevada, Utah, and Oregon. While drier, this part of the region is flatter and is home to towns like Susanville, which are among the region's largest. Similar to the northern coast, the Cascades are largely unexplored by visitors, and due to their geography, have a small population, keeping the region a mostly wild place. The same cannot be said about the next region on this list, the Central Valley. Stretching from Redding in the north to Bakersfield in the south, it is 442 miles long, or 711 kilometers, and is home to 6.5 million people. It is fed by two river systems, the Sacramento River in the north and the San Joaquin River in the south. The two rivers meet in the middle, forming the vast swamp-like California Delta. The delta then comes together to form the wide Carquinez Strait, which then empties into the San Francisco Bay, one of the largest estuaries and best ports in North America, and one of the largest centers of population in the United States. The Central Valley takes up 11% of the land area of the entire state, and is a major center of agriculture, with over 50% of all fruits and vegetables in the entire country coming from the Central Valley, harvested mostly by poor migrant workers. The reason for its enormous agricultural productivity comes from its geography. The valley is huge and flat, and all the snowmelt from the Sierra Nevada, which sits to the east, forms many large rivers which feed into the valley's crops. The northern half, called the Sacramento Valley, is much greener than the southern half, the San Joaquin Valley, where rivers often dry up, high temperatures are becoming common, and desertification is beginning to take place. The Central Valley is the start of an enormous canal called the California Aqueduct, one of the largest in the country, which carries water from the delta 701 miles, or 1,129 kilometers away, to Los Angeles. It is also home to an interesting geographic anomaly. While it is for the most part completely flat, a quick look at a map and you will find the Sutter Buttes, the world's smallest mountain range, which are